Pokemon X and Y released in 2013 for the Nintendo 3DS, and it brought a lot of new things to the Pokemon universe. For starters, it was the first main series game in 3D and on the 3DS. It brought a brand new type in Fairy type to the game, and it also introduced Mega Evolution, which is polarizing among Pokemon fans, but you gotta admit, some of these Mega Evolutions are pretty cool, like Mega Caesar. X and Y were also the first Pokemon games to have this weird, skinny, hard-covered, official strategy guidebook. Every other main series Pokemon guidebook, official or not, looks more like this. And this is probably how most of you imagine what a strategy guide looks like if you had one when you were younger. Now, we've looked at quite a few of these strategy guides in the past, and in case you're new around here, hey, this is PaPaSea from the YouTube channel PaPaSea, and you should totally subscribe and like the video since it helps a ton, and also maybe follow me on Twitch where I stream pretty often, linked in the description. But basically what we like to do around here is look at these strategy guides and try to follow them as closely as possible and do whatever they say in order to beat the game, while trying my best to act like a new player and ignore my prior knowledge of this game. There is a lot for us to learn in this Pokemon X and Y official Kalos region Pokemon book, but if you ever wanted to learn other things like perhaps animation, photography, or music production, that is where Skillshare, the sponsor of this video, is here to help you learn that thing you've been meaning to do for a while now. One class that I personally took on Skillshare myself recently was YouTube Success, Script, Shoot, and Edit with MKBHD. Even though I already know a fair bit about YouTube already, with this I learned about how to script better, how to better use my audio, how to use visuals better, and how to have better camera work, the latter of which is something that I know very little about, and all of these even helped while making this video. This course will also be great for all of those people who comment on my videos saying they want to start a YouTube channel but don't know where to begin. The beauty about Skillshare is they like to focus on learning, so there's no disruptive ads, and there's always new premium classes being added for you to focus on. This is great if you're completely new to something, an intermediate, or even a pro, since there's going to be something for you to explore on Skillshare. Skillshare is so cool that they're even offering a free 1-month trial to the first 1,000 subscribers of my channel who use my Skillshare link in the description, so you can start exploring your creativity and curiosity today. So taking a look at the actual Pokemon X and Y guidebook, the first thing I noticed was this map of the Kalos region and this X and Y themed screen cleaner that you can take out of the guide. This is the first time I've seen a guide with something added onto it that isn't a map, which is magnifique as they would say in Kalos. I also took off this cover because it was kind of getting in the way while flipping through the pages and noticed that the underside actually looks pretty cool as well, especially the back in my opinion. There's also a recommended route to go through the game that most of the guides have, at least the ones since Diamond and Pearl have, a tight matchup chart, and then we have the goals of the game. The first goal is to discover the secrets of Team Flare, a mysterious organization in the Kalos region, then to become the champion and collect all 8 Kalos gym badges, and to complete the Pokédex by catching all 450 Pokemon native to the region. We're not going to do that last part there since catching them all in X and Y would take far too long, and the guide doesn't even have a full Pokédex or tell me where to catch them all, so I really couldn't do it if I wanted to, but we'll definitely try to become the champion. The guide says that in order to reach these lofty goals, we'll have to master the fine arts of raising Pokemon and battling with them. It then goes on to showcase the things you would expect, like roller skates, the Pokemon Me, how to catch Pokemon, and it even says how a Pokemon's HP measures how tired it is. I've never seen HP described in this way before, and then it goes on for about 75 more pages showing more of the basics. It of course showcases Mega Evolution here, the big new mechanic added to Pokemon X and Y, but it doesn't picture any Pokemon in their Mega forms here, despite showcasing every single Pokemon and their egg groups a few pages later. It even tells you to let everybody know that you're happy with your status on the PSS page, the online portion of Pokemon X and Y. And then it shows this really cool art of Hydreigon and Sylveon. I remember them handing out postcards with this exact art on it at New York Comic Con in 2013, which happened around the same time this game was first released. The only thing that I noticed that was missing here was there wasn't a page showcasing all of the important trainers and a little bit about them. And don't worry, there is a berry section, it's just in the back of the guide. This finally brings brings us into the actual walkthrough portion of the guide, so let's load up the 3DS and a copy of Pokemon X and hammer away at it to beat it exactly how Nintendo intended. The game loads up with Professor Sycamore explaining some things and telling us to pick between Callum and Serena to play as. The guide doesn't show any of this part yet again, and unfortunately doesn't show the character's name, so I can't just name ourselves Hero like we've done in the past before, so I just name our character C. The guide starts off right in Vanderbilt town, and the very first step for this section has to be one of the funniest things I've read in any guide so far, mainly because of how this phrase aged. The part I'm referring to is the part that says a state-of-the-art Wii U system is hooked up, and you can turn on the TV to see a movie, a game show, or something else. Since this guide was only written about a year or so into the Wii U's life cycle, and now in 2021 we know that the Wii U's life cycle severely lacked the life part, I kind of laughed out loud when I first read this. From here we can then go downstairs to see our mom and go and sprint back upstairs as the guide says to get dressed, since this is the first game where we can do that in, then explore the house, and then finally go outside to meet our new neighbors Serena and Shauna. The guide has a tip where if you press B you can move faster. I'm not sure why they didn't just call this running or sprinting, especially when they just use the word sprint to tell me to go back upstairs. So I guess in this game you don't actually run, you just move faster. From here we can go through Route 1 and into Aquacorde Town to meet our new friends and pick our starter Pokemon. Our new friends insist on picking our own nickname for us for them to call us, so I just picked Nintended because that's what seemed appropriate. And then on the starter selection window, it doesn't give us much information about which starters to pick besides their types and their abilities and what they look like. It doesn't even showcase anywhere in the guide what these abilities do, and it gives no other information whatsoever on the starters, even though it says each of them have their own strengths and weaknesses, and then goes on to not showcase any of those. So I just pick Fennekin, name it Subscribe, since when I name my starter Subscribe, a lot more people subscribe, which is cool. And then we are given a letter that we have to deliver back to our mother in our hometown, and on the way, Shauna challenged us to our very first Pokemon battle. The guide says to just use the move that is the same type as our starter, so I lay waste to her Chespin by type trumping it with Ember. After delivering the letter, we can head into Route 2 where we learn how to battle and catch wild Pokemon, so I caught a Zigzagoon which I named Ziggy and a Fletchling which I named Sanders for two of the most basic names I could have possibly thought of. This then brings us into the Santa Lune Forest where we see all of our new friends running around and going through the forest with us. The guide suggests we catch some Pokemon here and mentions how good Pikachu is being an electric-type Pokemon, so I caught one and named it Twitch, and my Twitch channel is also linked in the description, which you should totally follow me on, by the way. Then on Route 3, I caught a Bunnelby and made it into Santa Lune City. The first thing we do here is heal up our Pokemon at the state-of-the-art Pokemon Center, since apparently this is one of Santa Lune City's main attractions, even though pretty much every city in every Pokemon region has one too. We can then pop by the boutique and buy a new hat to personalize our character a bit, get a free Great Ball, and then trade our Bunnelby to Cliff over here for his Farfetch'd, since the guide said it was quite rare. We then stop by the trainer school and meet the roller skater girl in front of the gym, who rewards us with some roller skates of our own after we defeat her in a battle. The guide then suggests to visit Route 22 to train up a little bit before the gym, so I go and do that since there's a couple of trainers there. The tip for this gym fight says to bring potions, use electric, flying, and rock Pokemon, and then specifically suggests to use a Pikachu if you have one. We luckily do have a Pikachu, but I wonder why it made no direct suggestion of using Quacklin, the Farfetch we just traded for, which is a flying type, when the guide did tell us to trade for it. The guide then showcases all of Gym Leader Viola's Pokemon, their levels, and all of their weaknesses, and is pretty similar to how they handled the gym battle sections for the 5th generation guides. In the tips section, it again recommends Pikachu, so I just use it and hammer away against Viola's team with Thundershock for the victory, giving us our very first gym badge in the Kalos region. As we exit the gym and proceed up north, we're also given the Exp Shirt, which is very useful in this generation, and to be honest, a little bit broken, since it allows our entire team to gain EXP after every battle, even if they weren't in that battle. We can now head through Route 4, explore the Geometric Gardens, meet Cinna and Dexio, and finally make it into Lumio City. Due to an odd and convenient blackout, we can't explore the full city right now, but we can meet Professor Sycamore at his Pokemon lab. He challenges us to a battle using a team of the 3 Kalos starter Pokemon, and after defeating him, we can pick between one of his 3 Pokemon to add to our own team. The guide suggests to pick one of the Pokemon that's a different type from our starter Pokemon, so I picked the water type Pokemon Squirtle and name it Dawn. We are also given a Mega Stone from the professor and are tasked to find out more about Mega Evolution in Camphor Town. As we exit the lab, we meet the mysterious Lysander, who definitely isn't up to anything suspicious, and then we meet our friends at Cafe Soleil. In the cafe, we see Lysander yet again talking to Diantha, a famous star in the Kalos region. Lysander talks about his dream of a beautiful, unchanging world, which again is not suspicious at all, and then the guide wants me to visit the nearby salon and get a haircut, so I do that. Lumio City is a huge city, and the guide showcases a lot that we can do here, like visit Cafe Luna, where a lot of double battles are held, and the Vertil Avenue, which has a few different shops, but our next real big task is to head over to Route 5. Tierno calls us on the holocaster to hurry up, and we meet Mr. Bonding, who teaches us about O powers that can give us an advantage in battle. There's even a page here on style, and apparently the more style you have in Lumio City, the cooler things you can do and the cheaper things become, like taxis become cheaper, which is kind of interesting. Once we finally make it into Route 5 though, we meet Karina, a gym leader, as well as her Lucario. After chatting with her, we can then hit up the nearby skate park for a bit, have a random double battle, which the guide suggests we can practice double battles in a Lumio City restaurant if we really needed a refresher. Although losing a double battle against a Plusle and Minun should be pretty hard, and then we can ultimately do a dance with Tierno, which is just a battle against his Corphish. This then leads us into one of Kalos region's oldest townships, Camphor Town. We meet Cassius here, who works with the Kalos PC network, chat with some of the locals, check out the nearby hotel. The Kalos region seems to have a lot of hotels, and also the castle, although the man in the castle has no idea what Mega Evolution is when we ask about it, and the whole reason why Sycamore told us to come here was to find out more about Mega Evolution. We can then proceed towards Route 7, where most of this route is blocked off by a sleeping Snorlax, so we have to take a detour and explore the berry fields. This was a cool thing that they had in the Kalos region to allow you to plant a lot of berries in one central location together, and we can even make mulch to help our berries grow faster and water them with this cool Lotad pail. With all of that berry planting out of the way though, we can now go to the Parfume Palace on Route 6, where we can find the item needed to make the Snorlax wake up and move, being the Pokeflute. On Route 6, the guide says how there's many trainers itching to battle, or perhaps they're just itching from their allergies, but to enter the palace we have to pay 1,000 Pokédollars. Shauna gets annoyed by this and says that by doing something like this, the rich only get richer, so welcome to capitalism, Shauna. But since we need the Pokeflute here, I guess it's worth it. In here, we have to help this guy find his lost Furfrou and watch this infamously awkward fireworks scene with Shauna before we can finally get the Pokeflute and go back to the Snorlax to wake it up. The guide suggests we try to catch it, so I do it and name it Tubbs because, I mean, it's kinda tubby. And farther along the route, we have a multi-battle with our friends, and of course our partner is Serena, who has a fletchling, which is terrible for this fight, but luckily we're able to hammer away and win anyway, and then we have to cut this tree using the cut HM that can be found in the Parfume Palace we were just at, although the guide made no mention about picking up this HM while we were there, so I have to backtrack and go and find it. This allows us to go into the connecting cave, which we don't have full access to yet since we need the strength HM. We can, however, make it across into the coastal route of Route 8, where we meet Cinna and Dexio again, who power up our Pokedex. Then we meet Serena, who tells us about fossils, and I know YouTube comments love fossils for some reason. And finally, we make it into Ambret Town. At this point in the guide, I noticed some instances where we have to flip back and forth later on, like how right before the pages on Ambret Town that we're at right now, it shows some information about Route 8 that we have to revisit later on after we visit the Glittering Cave. In Ambret Town, though, we can get the TM for Rock Smash, trade a Pokeball for a Dive Ball, visit the Fossil Lab where they tell us that they don't know too much about Mega Evolution, but say that we could visit the nearby glittering cave to find some fossils, and meet Mr. Bonding again, who always ends up right where we are somehow. We then have to visit the aquarium to get the old rod, since the guide says we can't complete the Kalos Coastal Pokedex without it, and also pick up the Rocky Helmet, which is a cool item that we could perhaps give to our Snorlax. In order to make it into the glittering cave and do some more research on Mega Evolution for Professor Sycamore, we have to get through Route 9. This route is pretty cool because we can ride a Rhyhorn here and use it to smash some rocks in our way. I remember when X and Y were first coming out, this was one of the cool new features they hyped up, was being able to ride Pokemon, although it's unfortunately limited to some very select areas like this one small route. Once in the glittering cave, the guide alludes to the idea that someone in here might know about Mega Evolution. As we traverse through the cave, we meet Team Flare though, who are searching for some rare fossils here, get some help defeating them from our friend Serena, and then find a lost Fossil Lab assistant who gives us a fossil as a thanks for saving him from Team Flare. I picked the Jaw fossil since it sounded much cooler than the Sail fossil, and once I turned into a Tyrant, I added to the team and named it Jaw. In order to exit the cave here though, I use an escape rope since the guide said to use an escape rope even though this cave really wasn't that big. From here we can head back into Route 8 and fish for a love disc, then smash some rocks to find some rare items, and use the dowsing machine a little bit to find even more items like the guide says. I continue along and make it into Sycamore City, home of the third gym. The first thing we do here is trade that love disc we just caught for a Steelix in the Pokemon Center, then get a bicycle, explore the city for a little bit, get the Strength HM, and then get ready to take on Grant in the Sycamore City gym with his rock-type Pokemon. The guide recommends that we bring a lot of potions and healing items, and luckily I have a ton of soda that I just bought since the guide said to buy them not too long ago, and it also says to use fighting, ground, or steel-type Pokemon in this gym. Luckily we just traded for a Steelix, which is quite convenient since it has 2 of those 3 types. And the guide says how Grant's 2 Pokemon have so many weaknesses that we shouldn't have trouble taking on this King of the Hill. That line would have been really funny if Grant's name was Hank instead, and even though Steelix ends up falling here, we continue to hammer away with our other Pokemon like our new Tyrant and our recently evolved 2 starter Pokemon to get the 3rd gym badge. We can now use the Strength HM out of battle, buy some additional items at the Pokemart, and head north into Route 10. This route is famous for its mind-boggling array of stones, and Team Flare make a stylish appearance here, so I take them out with style as the guide said. I of course don't forget to douse for some items, as the guide keeps telling me to do that ever since we got the dowsing machine, before making it into Geosenge Town. Here we can get a TM for payback, meet Mr. Bonding again, and see Team Flare who are up to something around here. As I try to exit the town and make it to Route 11, we're stopped by Korrina, who challenges us to a quick battle with her 2 Lucarios. Luckily we have Subscribe, a fire type, to type trump both of her Lucarios, allowing us to proceed into Route 11. On Route 11 there's a few small things we can do here, like get TM69 for rock polish, nice, and then head into the Reflection Cave. This is a cool cave since there's a lot of reflection on the wall and trainers can see you even when they're not facing you. There isn't really much else to detail here aside from the fact that we get the TM for Flash from Tierno, and as we make it to the exit of the cave we are led into Shallow City. The first thing we do here is see our good friend Mr. Bonding again, just standing in the corner of the Pokemon Center. Then we get some Stardust items by showing this person our Farfetch, which loves us apparently. We eventually meet Tierno and Trevor, who tell us about the Tower of Mastery, which kind of reminds me of the school from Soul Eater, and here we can find out the secrets of Mega Evolution. I don't know why Professor Sycamore didn't just tell us about this place from the start instead of sending us to all of these other places that knew nothing about Mega Evolution, but inside we meet the Mega Evolution Guru, who is Korrina's grandfather, who probably should visit the Lumio City hair salon as well, and then we have to battle Serena to show that we have what it takes to be able to Mega Evolve our Pokemon. After defeating her, we rest our party and then prepare for Korrina's fighting type gym. The battle tips for this gym are to bring a lot of recovery items and use flying, psychic, and fairy type moves. For Korrina's Pokemon list, it shows her Mienfoo, her Machoke, and Hawlucha. For some reason, there's no picture for the Hawlucha. This is the first time I've noticed the guide do something like this, and I thought maybe it's because it's a new Pokemon and they didn't have the picture ready, but it did show other pictured Pokemon, like the 2 fossil Pokemon that the first gym leader had. However, this gym goes by pretty smoothly since I have Breaks In, a Fire and Psychic type Pokemon, and Farfetch'd, a Flying type Pokemon, to type trump her whole team for the victory. I did actually end up losing the first attempt though because I let Hawlucha set up and crit me, which was kind of unfortunate, but at least we got it on the second attempt. The funny thing about this is I remember the battles against Korrina being particularly difficult, but more so the first battle against the Lucarios, which I remember failing in a Nuzlocke a long time ago. After defeating Korrina in her gym though, we have to return to the Tower of Mastery, make it to the top, battle Korrina again in a Mega Lucario 1v1 that we win, because we only use Power Up Punch as the guide said, and she gives us the Lucario to keep, which is nice, and we can also Mega Evolve it. I name it Romulus, and then we head over towards Route 12 where Serena gives us the Surf HM. This will be great for Dawn the Wartortle, which we can also Mega Evolve once it evolves into Blastoise. And if you actually don't have a water type on your team by now, there's even an NPC on this route that gives you a Lapras that you could use for Surf. This allows us to surf across the water into the Ba de Mer Ranch, where we get the TM for Attract and get to ride this Skiddo around the farm to collect some items. With all of that out of the way, we can proceed across into Kumarine City. This city is split into two different parts that are connected via a monorail, and there really isn't too much to showcase in the first part. All we can do here is get the good rod from this fisherman, meet the game director in the hotel, which the guide makes fun of by saying you'd probably expect to see Mr. Bonding here, but he's not here. I then enter the monorail station where we meet Sycamore and Diantha, where we get the HM for Fly, and make it to the other side of the city. Here we can visit the Pokemon Center since there wasn't one on the other side of the town to see Mr. Bonding again and battle Serena in front of the gym. Her Pokemon are a lower level than Korrina's Ace, and so are the next gym leader's Pokemon even, which I thought was a bit odd. After defeating Serena though, we can finally head into the gym and fight Ramos with his Grass-type Pokemon team. The guide really details this gym a lot, although it hasn't really done that for any of the previous gyms, and says to bring a lot of Super Potions and use Fire, Ice, Poison, Flying, or Bug-type Pokemon. While traveling through the gym and battling all of the junior trainers, Subscribe evolves into Delphox, which is perfect for this battle. I also decided to evolve Pikachu into Raichu here since I realized I had a Thunderstone in my bag, and when I hovered over it, it said I could use it for Pikachu, so I did. The guide also recommends to use the HM move Fly in this fight, so I taught it to Farfetch'd, and also noticed that Ramos's Go-Goat isn't pictured here for some reason either. After defeating Ramos and exiting the gym, we get a holo clip from Lysander who wants us to use our Mega Evolution skills to help him, again definitely not sus at all, and proceed into Route 13 where Senna and Dexia upgrade our decks. On Route 13 we have to brave the Badlands to get across into the power plant and battle this Grunt who drops his plant pass. This allows us to enter the Kalos power plant, and something isn't wrong here since Lumio City is still without power in many parts of it. Team Flare is definitely up to something here, and we find a small room where the power plant's employees are being held hostage. One of them even tries to sell us water for 300 Pokédollars, although they normally sell for 200, and he told us that, so that's quite the deal. We continue across the power plant, clearing out the Team Flare grunts and their admins, where we finally evolve our Wartortle into Blastoise too, and eventually meet the Defenders of Kalos, who are masked and look a lot like they belong in Persona 5. This then loops us back around into Lumio City from the other side, and since we restored the power plant, we have more power in Lumio so we can explore it freely. And on this side, we meet Shauna and see the city's iconic Prism Tower get lit up again. The guide then says to check out the Lysander Cafe where some Team Flare grunts are hanging out by, which definitely isn't sus at all. And the next few pages of the guide showcase all of the new things we can do in Lumio City, but the main thing to do now is challenge the gym leader Clemont and his electric type Pokemon team. The tips here are to use items that heal status conditions like the Lumio Skeletts, so of course I tracked down some Lumio Skeletts thanks to the help of the guide and buy a couple of them. And the guide also says to use ground type Pokemon for his electric type Pokemon, or ice and rock type Pokemon for his Emolga since it's part flying type. The funny thing about this gym is in order to get to the top and challenge Clemont, we have to answer some questions in a Who's That Pokemon style like we would see in the original Pokemon anime. Since we're supposed to be playing through Pokemon X and Y like it's our first time and following the guide as closely as possible, I only get the correct answers for Pokemon that we've actually seen a lot, like Pikachu, since the guide didn't tell us what the correct answers for all of these questions were. I eventually make it to the top, and Clemont just challenges us without me actually talking to him, so I had to heal up in the middle of the battle. I end up doing so we can heal up our Tyrant and Mega Lucario since they both have moves that the guide recommended, and after healing them up, Tyrant and Lucario lay waste to Clemont's intrepid team in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. As we leave the gym, we get a call from Professor Sycamore telling us to meet him at the Lysander Cafe. Once we get there, we're told a story about an ancient Kalos king who ruled there 3,000 years ago. We're then given the King's Rock before Lysander exits. From here, we can now head to Route 14 and into Kumarine City. On Route 14, we have a quick battle against Serena and are shown this scary house. There's really not much for us to do in the scary house, so I just go up into Kumarine City, which the guide says may not be an ideal vacation spot, not really sure what that means. And after meeting Mr. Bonding again, there's some small things we can do here before challenging the gym leader. The gym leader, Valerie, focuses on fairy-type Pokemon, the new type introduced in Pokemon X and Y. There's even a page in this section of the guide that explains fairy types more, since it's the first time in a very long time that Pokemon have added a brand new type to the game, and since then they have not added a new type yet. For the gym battle, the guide suggests we bring healing items again, and also says that we use fire, poison, and steel type Pokemon. We have a fire type in Delphox and a steel type in Lucario, although Lucario unfortunately has no steel type moves. The gym also has this cool aesthetic of being a house and reminds me of one of those old Nickelodeon game shows. The tip the guide has for getting through the gym is to keep right if you get stuck, although the final warp panel that leads into Valerie is on the left side. I lead with Delphox to dispatch her lead Mawile with a fire type move, and then on her Sylveon, which the guide has no picture for again, I stay in and knock it out with a few Psyshocks. Last up is her Mr. Mime, which does get up a light screen, but since we have plot armor, Delphox gets a critical hit and knocks out anyway, giving us our 6th gym badge. At this point, I also realized that the gap between the first 3 badges in this game is way more than the gap between these last 3 badges we just got, but for now we have to visit the nearby Pokeball factory. This area is pretty straightforward with some Team Flare fights, and we also have to fight a couple of Team Flare admins who have to be some of the most forgetful admins in all of Pokemon. We are aided by Serena for this last Team Flare fight, and as a thank you from the Pokeball Factory president for saving the factory, he gives us a Big Nugget and a Master Ball. Now we can head into Route 15, a leaf-colored route where trainers can pop out from the leaves to challenge us to a battle. There's quite a few things we can do in and around this route, although the guide says they are all optional and we don't really need to do them. So I just skip most of them and head into Dendemil Town. Right before we get into this town, Lysander calls us and tells us some deep stuff like how certain Pokemon and people are chosen for greatness. This is a bit too deep for this type of game since I just wanted to battle with some cool Pokemon like Blastoise and Tyrantrum with my handy dandy Pokemon X and Y official strategy guide. So I just head into the snowy city of Dendemil Town. Here we can chat with Sycamore and Dexia, who tell us a bit about the Kalos legends, most notably Xerneas since I am playing Pokemon X version. We can buy some milk from this random girl standing outside, doesn't always seem like a good idea to me, and meet our good friend Mr. Bonding, and eventually make it into the Frost Cavern. Team Flare is here again and trying to do something evil, so it's up to us to stop them, of course, with the help of our friend Trevor. It turns out that they wanted to use this Abomasnow to help with their Mega Evolution experiments or whatever, although that really isn't too clear exactly what they needed it for, and after rescuing the Abomasnow, it gives us the Abomasnowite, which might have been what Team Flare was after. This allows us to make it into Route 17, where we can ride a Mamoswine across the snow and all the way into Anastar City. We're greeted by Cinna here, who gives us some repeat balls, marvel at this memory girl's skills who doesn't really tell us anything useful, and meet Mr. You know what, I'm not going to say it again, then get this random TM from the Hex Maniac. Another optional thing we can do here is give this man a level 5 or lower Pokemon because he is lonely after his wife passed away. I fly to an early route as the guide suggests to catch a Bunnelby for him since I didn't have a low level Pokemon in my PC. And if you didn't know, this guy also ends up passing away too after you become the champion, and you can return here and pick up that Pokemon. Rather morbid thing to have in a Pokemon game, especially in a relatively newer one. This is something I would expect from, say, Red and Blue or something like that. But our next task is to battle Serena in front of the next gym. The guide says how this is the most challenging rival fight yet, but since I am a little bit overpowered thanks to the EXP share and have a Mega Lucario on my team, it really wasn't that much of a challenge. I'm noticing that some of my Pokemon, especially my Delphox, which is holding the Lucky Egg, is quite overleveled by this point. What was rather challenging though was making my way through this gym. Although the guide did have a nice map to guide us through it, the battle itself was a little difficult. For Olympia's psychic type team, the guide does what it always does and just recommends moves super effective to psychic types and to bring healing items. Interestingly though, it says to only bring super potions when we have access to hyper potions now, so I just bought more super potions. I also noticed that the guide rarely recommends that we ever use or catch specific Pokemon, aside from that Pikachu is suggested from the start in the forest. Not every guide does this, but the 5th generation guides did tell us to catch a new Pokemon for pretty much every gym, which I did. Now the only dark moves I have for Olympia's Psychic team are Crunch on Tyrantrum and Bite on Mega Blastoise, so this gym was a bit annoying, especially with our Pokemon setting up Reflex. And although the guide has no picture for her Meowstic, I was still able to win and get the 7th gym badge, mainly because Tyrantrum is a pretty strong Pokemon. Once we leave the gym, we see Serena and get a holo clip from Lysander and Team Flare. The guide says how in a sickening revelation that nobody definitely saw coming, you find out that somebody very familiar to you is actually behind the threatening group, being Team Flare. What's worse is they plan on using something they call the ultimate weapon to wipe out everyone in the Kalos region who isn't with them. Not good. This is not good indeed, since killing everybody in the entire Kalos region is not good. We have to return to Lumio City now to Team Flare's hideout under Cafe Lysander. I have no idea how Team Flare managed to have a giant 3-floor underground base under the largest city in the Kalos region, which probably has a lot of other underground infrastructure going on with it that this would probably get in the way of. Once in the cafe though, we battle a couple of grunts and then open a secret door reminiscent to the secret door in the Rocket hideout in the Celadon City game corner. And once inside, we have to test our skills against the head of Team Flare, Lysander. His team is kind of weak for being the head of the evil team this late in the game. And after we defeat him, we have to explore the rest of the lab, defeat other Team Flare admins, and stop them from firing off the ultimate weapon. We eventually find the elevator key and take the elevator to where we see Lysander and a man locked behind some bars. This mysterious tall man is known as AZ, and he tells us about the destructive events that happened in the Kalos region 3,000 years ago with the ultimate weapon. This story and the whole X and Y story in general is definitely a story, and in order to free AZ and stop the weapon from firing, we have to defeat Xerosic, the only somewhat memorable member of Team Flare, and press a button to stop the weapon, although none of the buttons actually stop it. I also thought I'd mention that I bought this coat sometime recently. I don't remember exactly when I bought it, but I remember being in one of the snowy towns, I saw a boutique and thought, hey, having a jacket would make sense, although now we're not in the snow anymore, so I don't know why I'm still wearing it. With the weapon almost ready to fire, we have to head back to Geosenge Town where the weapon is hidden. I also want to mention here that the guide hasn't required us to flip back and forth between pages too much, at least not since the much earlier parts of this guide, and has the new sections about Geosenge Town on a much later page than the page when we first accessed Geosenge Town, much like they've done with a lot of other previous areas like when we were just back in Lumio City, something that not a lot of guides do. I often complain a lot about these guides requiring us to flip back and forth a lot, like how in the Gold and Silver guide we access Goldenrod City pretty early on and then return to it much later in the game, and instead of having those pages where we return back to the city, later in the guide it requires us to flip all the way back. In Geosenge Town though, the ultimate weapon rises out of the ground and topples over many of the houses, somehow not really destroying them, just toppling them over, and we also uncover another hidden Team Flare base known as the Team Flare secret headquarters. As we enter, we have to dispatch Lysander again, then race to find the legendary Pokemon that Team Flare is holding to power up their ultimate weapon. We have a lot of Team Flare fights along the way that Serena assists us with, and the guide doesn't even name a couple of the admins here and just refers to them as male admin or female admin. I have no idea if they have actual names or not, but we eventually progress forward and meet Shauna, who helps us open a sealed door with a device that the gym leader Clement gave to her that leads into the room where Xerneas is now being held. The guide says how we can use our Master Ball if we still have it here to catch Xerneas, so I do, and I end up adding it to our party. I'll show my party on screen here though if you guys were wondering what my full party was, since I really haven't been explaining what Pokemon I've been using too much. And I decided to replace the Tyrantrum for Xerneas for now, since we're going to have to fight Lysander soon, and the guide says that Xerneas is good against 3 of his 4 Pokemon since they're weak to Fairy. Lysander's team page doesn't picture his Gyarados this time, although it pictured it previously. Probably since this time he Mega Evolves his Gyarados now, and I guess the guy didn't have PNGs for Mega Pokemon either. We end up defeating Lysander though in his crazy outfit, and Lysander has a bit of a breakdown where we learn more about his crazy plan and just how insane it was. I still think it's pretty weird how Team Flare's goal was to straight up kill a ton of people, compared to a lot of other evil teams' plans like Team Rocket, who really just wanted a lot of money and rare items. Now that I think about it, all of the evil teams, with the exception of maybe Team Rocket, had these really insane goals that didn't make a lot of sense, but with Team Flare's plan squashed now and the ultimate weapon imploding on itself and AZ thanking us for helping him, the Kalos region is now saved, except for I guess Geosenge Town, since there's still this huge crater in the middle of it and a lot of the houses are still toppled over. From here, we have to go back to Anastar City, through Route 18 and into Kuriway Town. All we really have to do here is battle Professor Sycamore and his team of the 3 fully evolved Kanto starters. After dispatching him, we can head into Route 19, step into some soggy bottoms, come full circle with Shauna in a battle, rematch Tierno and fight Trevor, who the guide describes as a relentless rival. He is arguably the least important rival of the bunch in this game and was definitely the least threatening. And with all those battles out of the way, we can make our way into Snowbell City, the home of the 8th and final gym badge in the Kalos region. The first thing we have to do here is, you know what? Then we can teach our Blastoise an ultimate move, which I do since an ultimate move just sounds too good to pass up, then search for Wolfric in the Winding Woods. The guide has a full map to make going through here easy, and at the end we reach the Pokemon village where Wolfric is. He then returns to his gym, and the guide mentions how rare Pokemon can be found here, especially later on. Now that we can challenge Wolfric in his gym, I look at the guide to see that it of course recommends to use Hyper Potions and moves super effective to his Ice-type Pokemon, much like every other gym battle has. He has a team of Abomasnow, Cryogonal, and Avalugg, with the Avalugg not being pictured of course like a lot of new Pokemon in this guide. I lead with our starter, Subscribe the Delphox, to type trump our Ice-type foes with Fire-type moves for the victory, giving us our 8th and final gym badge. We also get Ice Beam, a pretty good TM, and now all that's left to do is go through Victory Road, challenge the Elite Four, and become the champion of the Kalos region to beat Pokemon X and Y as Nintendo intended. I begin to head through Route 21 into the Victory Road, which the guide has a map for us to follow so we can get through it quickly. Towards the end of Victory Road, we have one last battle against our rival Serena, and I get through her with no problem, just like every other Serena fight. I never really thought about this before, but after playing through Pokemon X and Y again, I think that Serena might be the easiest rival in all of the main series Pokemon games. But with this victory, we can now head into the Pokemon League. The first thing we do here is catch our breath in the Pokemon Center by healing and buying some items for the upcoming battles. The guide then gives us some techniques to follow in order to defeat the Elite Four, which include examining our party with an expert eye, something that it also said in the Black and White 2 guide, giving our team some held items, buying some medicine, deciding on which order to battle the Elite Four members in, and to use extra rare candies if we have any laying around, which I happen to have. All of these tips are very similar to what the Generation 5 guides had, and the order that I decided to battle the Elite Four in happens to be the same order that the guide puts them in. First up is Malva and her Fire-type team, which Mega Blastoise helps us get through incredibly easy. If you look at her team, you'll also notice her Talonflame just has no picture, but Pyroar does. Next up is Cybold and his Water-type Pokemon, which the guide says to use Electric and Grass-type moves against, so Raichu with the move Grass Knot should be perfect here. Raichu does end up falling to his Starmie after getting a couple of KOs on his Pokemon, but Delphox also has the move Grass Knot and was able to clean up for the victory. Third is Wixstorm and his Steel-type Pokemon team, and the guide makes note about how a lot of his Pokemon and Malva's Pokemon are weak to the same types in Ground. I end up using Delphox to one-shot most of his team though, since fire was also a recommended type. Then I send out Lucario to knock out his Probass with a 4x super effective fighting move for the win. I also noticed that the order the guide lists the Pokemon isn't even the right order that the Elite Four members send their team out. I am unsure if they're always going to send out the same lead Pokemon every time or not, like in some previous Pokemon games, but it's still a little weird to just have them in a random order. Last up is Draenza and her Dragon type team, and the guide directly suggests that we teach a Pokemon Ice Beam and use a strong Fairy type Pokemon, and luckily I taught Ice Beam to Blastoise and have a strong Fairy type Pokemon in Xerneas. I thought this battle would be much harder since Dragon type Elite Four members tend to be a little bit difficult. I'm looking at you, Drake from Hoenn, but this one wasn't too bad. Granted, I did have a Xerneas, so that's probably why. All that's left for us now is the champion, Diantha. She has a diverse team that doesn't focus on a single type, so I do as the guide says and switch out my Pokemon to exploit her weaknesses. The guide goes on to explain her Pokemon's weaknesses, then spends about half of the section about this fight talking about her Gardevoir. It says how her Gardevoir has Captivate, Hypnosis, Imprison, and Future Sight. This is an odd moveset, and once I battle her Gardevoir, I see that it Mega Evolves and goes for Thunderbolt. I'm not sure why the guide made no mention of her Gardevoir Mega Evolving, and why it has the complete wrong moveset as it didn't even mention Thunderbolts, since it should really have Moonblast, Shadow Ball, Psychic, and Thunderbolt according to Bulbapedia. But after shuffling in some of my Pokemon against her Mega Gardevoir, which was really the only threatening Pokemon on her team for us, I'm able to take it out with Romulus, making us the champion of the Kalos region, meaning that we beat Pokemon X as Nintendo intended. I personally had a lot of fun playing this game since although it isn't one of the most liked Pokemon games among the Pokemon fans, I personally still think it's the best 3DS Pokemon game. I remember playing Pokemon X and Y a ton when they first came out too, and it sort of reignited my love for Pokemon since although I did play both of the 5th generation games when they were first released, I started to play Pokemon much more when X and Y came out when it comes to battling and doing a bunch of extra stuff in Pokemon even up until this day. They are definitely one of the easiest Pokemon games, if not the easiest games in the series, as you could probably tell since most of the battles were just swept by one single Pokemon on my team, even the Elite Four, but I still think they're fun to play. I had to do pretty much no grinding whatsoever in this run too, which is a huge plus for me since I really don't like spending time grinding. Overall, the guide itself was pretty good too, and was presented in a much similar manner to the two Generation 5 guides that we looked at before it. I really like that this time around they weren't too many instances where you had to flip back a ton of pages too. The only real issue I had with it is they didn't picture some of the Generation 6 Pokemon for some reason. I'm guessing maybe they didn't have all of the assets for that, and they didn't really recommend that I catch many Pokemon outside of that one Pikachu we caught pretty early on, and somehow really messed up the part about Diantha's battle, especially her Gardevoir. The rest of the guide doesn't really have anything about looker missions either, which I'm guessing is tied to some sort of Pokedex or Part 2 guide for Pokemon X and Y. And I didn't really notice any mistakes in the guide except for the Gardevoir. I also want to give a huge shout out to Mystery Ore for inspiring this series again, who will be linked in the description, and to each and every one of you who watch and support my content. These Nintended videos take a long time to make, especially compared to some of my other videos, but knowing that you all enjoyed so much makes it all worth it. We're also super close to 100,000 subscribers, largely thanks to this series, a milestone that I've always wanted to hit. With all of that out of the way, I just want to thank you all so much for watching. Hope you have a good rest of your day. I'll see you all next time, and bye bye.